In this video, I'm going to continue my series using the Ahrefs API, and in this video, we're going to use the Site Explorer and a few different endpoints, such as the domain rating, referring domains, and top pages. Just to show you what we have built and what we'll build in this video, you're going to feed in a URL, maybe it's a competitor or just a site, and specifically SEO content, what are the metrics we typically look at from the Ahrefs tool, and pulling it into Google Sheets. In this video, it's going to show you traffic value, referring domains, and domain rating. So as you can see here, I'm limiting it to the top 50 posts on their blog. And in this example, because make.com covers a lot of automation, because I believe that's what their tool does, I have not played around with it, figured I could maybe ideate some ideas around like what videos to make because of what their top performers are. So it's filtered by traffic, brings in their traffic value, referring domains, and domain rating, as I said. This video does require an API key from Ahrefs, which if you're on the enterprise account level, then you'll have access to the API. I believe they give a pretty good amount of credits, whereas previously you had to pay extra for those credits. And granted, this video, it's not sponsored by Ahrefs. It is an expensive tool. I understand that. And hopefully, you have access and this is going to be helpful. Let's get into how to build it. So in a new sheet, we'll rename it Site Explorer API. We'll go to the extensions, app script, and I'm just going to scaffold out a few functions here. On open, we'll say get top pages, because we're going to hopefully this breaking it up into different calls will allow you to really pick and choose from the functions that you want in the automations you're building. Referring domains, and finally a get competitor function. I'm going to rename this project Ahrefs Site Explorer API, and we'll just get right into it with the top pages call. So I'm going to delete this API key after this video, but I did generate, I'm using one here. You'll notice that I use their handy playground for constructing API calls, and then I can really just take this example curl request and break it apart in app script based on what we need here. You'll see I put in today's date, which is February 22nd, 2025. These are the metrics that I want to get: the sum traffic, the value, and the URL, because we want to print those in Google Sheets. I'm also limiting it to the top 50. It defaults to 1,000. So if you want to not put the limit, you can remove that from the URL. I'm ordering it by the sum traffic, so it should be in descending order, both HTTP, HTTPS. That's just kind of opens up the floodgates essentially. And I'm also selecting volume mode of monthly. You can do average if you want. All of these metrics are available when you pull in the top pages, and the documentation's here. I will link to it in the description below. It's also worth noting, I will link to my GitHub account where I've put all of the code for this finished project, just about 100 lines of code. Now that we have this, let's just grab the URL, and back in here in get top pages, we'll say const URL is equal to, we'll paste that in. I'm going to play around with it just a little bit because we want to remove the target and the date, because we're going to feed those in separately. So I like to construct top pages. We'll go with date equals, we'll add in a date, which we'll construct that in a second as well. These backticks allow you to interpolate the value with the dollar symbol and curly brackets. We'll also say plus, close it or open those quotes again, and add an ampersand for the limit as well. At the end here, we'll say end target is equal to, and we'll also feed in the target, which we're actually going to get as a parameter to this function. Okay, that looks pretty good. As I mentioned, we're going to construct a date, and the way that, if you go back to the documentation, Ahrefs expects the date in this format: year, month, and date with dashes. So we'll say utilities.format date, new date. So we'll get today's date, the time zone's GMT, which just makes it pretty broad, the format Ahrefs looks for. For each of these Ahrefs API calls, we'll basically use the same method as get, and the headers, which again, I'm just basically constructing this from the curl command, how it's accepted in AppScript. So application /JSON. You can also say application XML just in case. The authorization bearer, the capital B is important there, and the API key that I will copy in here. And again, I will delete after this video is live. And now we'll say const res is equal to URL fetch app dot fetch URL, and we'll pass in the options. We'll also say num is JSON parse. I don't know why I call it num. I just, for some reason, have that in my mind. Let's log num logger.log num. We'll just see what that looks like. Since we, just to test this, we'll remove this and we'll say const target is equal to, let's just grab this URL. And now we'll select get top pages. We'll run that, review permissions, accept that it will connect to an external service, which is Ahrefs. And amazing, we're getting a response here. So traffic, value, and the URL of the top 50 pages. If you notice when I showed how this tool works, we're going to add some columns to then input the data in Google Sheets. So get active spreadsheet, get active sheet, and we'll just say const sheet equals that, because then we can say sheet.getRange, and we'll say the first row, the second column, set value equal to traffic. And we're going to do a couple of these. We'll say value. This is in the third column, first row, referring domains and domain rating. We're also going to iterate over each of the 50 URLs. So we'll do that now, where we say sheet.getRange 2 plus I, because we want to start in the second row, and we'll add each URL to that. And this is going to be in the first column. We'll set the value of that equal to num.pages, and we're going to get the ith page, and we'll get the URL from that. And we'll set the value in Google Sheets. Similarly, we're going to say in the second column, same thing, but some traffic. In the third column, this one's kind of unique because we're going to cast it as the type of a number. Traffic, or the value, actually is returned as a weird format. We needed to divide it by 100 to actually get it to a numeric, like what looks like a currency. Yeah, I'll run get top pages, Command R. Again, we have to review. And let's go back to the sheet and we'll see, okay, we're getting some of these values. The URLs are being input. That's exactly what we want. We still need to build the referring domains function and the domain rating function for those to work, but we are in a good place and we're seeing that that's working. Also say, we're going to remove this because actually to get input from the user, or from yourself really, we'll say const UI is equal to spreadsheet app.getUI. Const result is equal to UI.prompt. And this takes in a string top competitor URL. Enter the URL path to content, i.e. UI.buttonset.okCancel. And I will say const button is equal to result.getSelectedButton, and const target is equal to result.getResponseText. So if the button is equal to UI.button.ok, then that's a good thing, and we'll pass to get top pages the target. Else if button is equal to UI.button.cancel, we'll alert the user I did not get that. And else if the button is equal to UI.button.close, which is a third option, okay, cancel, and then there's an X button to close it. We will also say you close the dialog. Just helpful error handling. All right, now that we're passing the target to get top pages, taking that in, we're passing it to the API call for Ahrefs, and that should function as expected. But now let's get the domain rating built, and let's just copy all of this. We're going to change the URL back over to let's look at the API documentation for domain rating. And let's just see if this works for make. It does. Their domain rating's 84, quite good. Just pull in this URL. Domain rating. Again, we'll add the date. We will also add in the target. Add quotes back here. we're getting the, the same options, and now the new URL, and now when we need to isolate the URL. So we'll return num.domain rating. And just to test, let's say const target is equal to this URL, and instead of returning it, we will log it. We'll make sure domain rating is the function being called. We'll click run, and 84 is being returned. Remove the test code, uncomment that by highlighting the code command /. That's just a helpful keyboard shortcut. Put the target back in the parameters. Now that code should work. Let's update get top pages to then call that. Let dr domain rating equal, we'll pass domain rating target. We could also just pass in the date, which we already have here. And instead of writing that twice, why don't we do that just for simplicity? Command S to save that. And now we actually want to put the domain rating in the second row, 5th column under the domain rating. We will input dr. Let's get referring domains done. So similarly, we're going to pass in a target. Why don't we also pass in a date? So I'm just going to write this URL out. Okay, so this is the URL that we are taking the target and the date, passing it to backlink stats, and the mode is exact. We want the exact URL that we're passing through. Again, we're going to just repurpose this code for the options. We're going to pass it to URL fetch app.fetch, and we're going to get the response and parse it. And we'll say const refs equals num.metrics. If num.metrics is there, we'll say live domains, otherwise 0. That gets just how many referring domains are currently pointing towards this page. And we're going to, we're going to return refs. And now we also need to update the get top pages to pass in the 4th column referring domains, which we'll pass in to this. So we'll say let refs equals referring domains, because we want to run it for each URL. So for the ith URL, we'll run that target through in the date. Command S to save that. And now we'll just write a handy onOpen function, get UI, create menu. We'll call the menu Ahrefs API. We'll add an item, top competitor performance, get competitors. So this will prompt, put that in quotes, will prompt the user to get the input URL. We'll add that to UI, Command S to save that. So it's actually live ref domains. Command S to save that. Back over here, let's pull the top competitor. I'm going to add a trailing slash. There are probably better ways of writing this code that will make this run faster. So I can't promise that it's the right way of doing this, but I can promise that it works for me. And as you can see, we now are getting the traffic value. You can format that as currency to make that a little bit more clear. And you can see it's in descending order of organic traffic. We're getting the referring domains. We're getting the domain rating of the site. Hopefully this is a helpful starting point for you to then customize the automation in Google Sheets based on the metrics that you want to see in your SEO reporting. You can put in URLs of your choosing and get these metrics and many more. So I hope this was a helpful overview of the Ahrefs Site Explorer API, and I look forward to your feedback in the comment section below. If you run into any issues or if you have specific requests, I'm open to taking those and building a project that would be helpful for you. Thank you for your time.